welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me, as always, is Mr. Logan Stump.
How's it going, everybody?
Good. I was in your neck of the woods last week, but we didn't get to see each other.
I was going to say, were you there?
We don't talk outside of here.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. What'd you do?
Did everything but see you, actually.
Right.
Yeah, we went to Disney World, and yeah.
Is that why you kept texting me asking me where I was? Just so you didn't have the awkward...
Yeah.
I got you.
You probably thought I was trying to hook up with you, like meet up with you. No. Yeah. I was like, okay, well, he's there, so we got to go this way now.
Well, I was going to say, I was wondering why when you text me, I'm at Disney Springs, and I show up, and I saw you check in at Epcot. I was really confused. It's like he must not remember which
that we had
parks were
plans. Yeah. That's all jokes. Logan and I did get to hang out. We got to watch, Austria versus Netherlands?
Yeah, we did.
At Splitsville. That was nice.
It was. It was fun watching soccer with you in person.
Yeah.
We never get to do it.
That was eight years after we met each other at Splitsville. Yeah. So we're getting up to that 8-year part where you, Matt, and I
That's nuts.
and Rich met at Splitsville that day. That fateful August 4th of 2013.
That's wild. It still seems like yesterday.
Yeah. It does. The way we're probably going to structure this is just talking a little bit about each team from the break to now, because I was on vacation, so we did not have any time. I thought I would have time. I didn't even have time to record the Loki one by myself like I was probably going to do. So I have to make up that at some point. But yeah, we let me tell you, it doesn't feel like a Friday right now either, because I went back to work for 2 days and now I'm off again. So it's all kind of strange. But kind of get back in the groove of this, as I was out doing my thing. You're in the middle of your summer break. So both of these, both sets of these games kicked off right when I was at my busiest down there.
Mm-hmm.
At night, especially. It was these games were Saturday. Then Sunday was the Union game, and then it was Wednesday, the day I came back, but I had to go over my parents' house that day, so I did not get a chance to. I got to see some of the, when it was actually happening. I got to see some of the DC United Montreal game and another game that we put on while we were there, but they were blacked out of the Union game at my parents' house.
How far away are they from Philly?
An hour and a half. They're almost the same distance I am. But
that makes sense, though, because I won't get to see the Miami game.
Yeah, it's just...
It's weird. I don't like it. Yeah.
It's just weird.
No.
Anyway, I could watch it here, but I can't watch it there. And I never had a problem until this year. So I don't know if it's new blackout rules or what. Because they're in Maryland as well. They're in the same county I am. So I'm not really sure what the deal is there. But then I'm blacked out of DC United here. He's not. So they're able to watch DC United there, and I can't. So
gotcha.
I don't know how these rules are working at this point. But it's good. And I'm wearing my Orlando City kit for the listeners out there, because they're playing tonight, the day we're recording this. They're playing tonight. I didn't take this down to Florida with me like I probably should have. And I just had a pizza guy deliver me some pizza, and he said, "Nice jersey, dude." And
you should have quizzed him.
I should have been like, well, I should have just been like, yeah, what team is this even? Do you know what team this is? It says it right there, but I don't know if you can see
the Lion King Lions.
Yeah. He's like, oh, that's a Disney World kit, right? Yeah. Simba, Mufasa. So that was nice. When we were down there, I saw a lot of Orlando City stuff. It was great.
Yeah, I think you even saw one with me, because you were like, that's an Orlando City kit. Again. I was like, yeah.
We even saw a guy wearing the new Union away kit, the blue one. I said something to him.
Yeah.
The lightning one.
He wanted to hug you, or I don't know what he was trying to do.
I held out my hands awkwardly like, dude, nice jersey like that. He thought I was approaching for a hug. We did not hug. But it was at a point where it's like, I don't think he knew what to do. I didn't know what to do. So I just kind of backed away after that. But, yeah,
I don't know which one was better, that or when Matt cornered Marcin Gortat at Universal Studios and kind of stood. And if you don't know basketball, Marcin Gortat's 7'1" or 7'2", and our friend's like 5'7", and he like steps in front of him and goes, "Marcin Gortat," and Gortat was like, "No, that's no." I'm like, who else would that be? Like, it's this. I mean, he's got like a bald face. He's like this big. I think he's Ukrainian. He's got this huge like goatee. I'm like,
I wouldn't even know who that is.
I think you would if you saw a picture, maybe, because he was a Wizard for a long time.
Yeah, I just started watching though.
Yeah, but I think you probably would have seen him in passing, whether it been
Maybe
whatever you've seen of the Wizards highlights.
Michael Jordan and Gilbert
Yeah.
Arenas before this year. Those are
shootout.
like the only two. Yeah. Those are like the only two Wizards I knew before
That's
I started
awesome.
watching. And John Wall, but he was traded. Anyway, we are going to be talking some MLS. We're going to be catching up on some of those games that happened. The Gold Cup squad was released, 60 names. We're not going to go over them because really it's every player that could possibly be called in, and they'll lower that to like the 23. At a later point, people were flipping out that Luca De La Torre wasn't on there. Sounds like now he asked to stay with his club team to be able to try to make the qualifying rosters for the World Cup, which makes sense. People are upset that Musa wasn't called in because he didn't really play in the Nations League stuff. But it's probably best for him to stay with his club team as well. He's going to want to be able to fit in there and then try to make the qualifying roster as well. This Gold Cup is really for people that have yet to really impress or get as much game time as they probably should. So it's more for depth at this point.
And the people got to remember, in July, a lot of these teams will start some kind of camp coming up, whether it's the European clubs or some of the South American clubs. They'll go in and start their training because their seasons start in the fall. So I know that's why there's a lot of guys listed that are probably going to be playing in Europe, and that's why you see such a long name. But it's going to be mostly MLS guys. That's pretty much what people have deciphered from the list. It's going to be a lot of the Jackson Ewells and Daryl DKs and Sam Vines and those kind of guys that we saw with the qualifying team down with the Olympics, just because there's such a – you got to think about this. These guys have been on a weird schedule, especially for Premier League. They stopped in October of last year and picked back up in November.
So here's how I wanted to introduce the show. I totally forgot. I want to introduce it as this is MLS is Back Part 4. We had MLS is Back last summer. Then we had MLS is Back in October for the rest of the season or whatever, right? September. And then we had MLS is Back to start the season. And now this is Part 4 where we had that 3-week break or whatever. And now MLS is back again. Is back. Yes. That's kind of what we've been at this point. So I feel like every time we do one of these shows, it's like, oh, MLS is back. I'm just gonna start saying it every even when there's only like a day in between. Be like, MLS is back. Nice.
Oh gosh.
But today there is a game, Miami versus Orlando. Do we know if this has a derby name?
No, so I think you and I were discussing pre-show. It doesn't have a derby name. Not that I've caught on to, at least being a fan for the first time this year. It doesn't seem like it does. So I think you and I had discussed about coming up with a derby name if it doesn't already have one, which I think could be some kind of fun stuff there. I was thinking about my first one was like the Florida Fun Cup. So just because it'd be a lot of fun, and FF, you got the alliteration there. I joked about the Scandal Cup, but Orlando doesn't really have a scandal, so you know which one I'm talking about. I don't know, like the battle of, because they're not really on the coast. Miami is, but Orlando's not. I don't know. It's like a weird, the Disney World Cup, the Disney. I don't know, Shield. No idea.
Yeah, I was gonna say because Miami has nothing to do with Disney, so it's tough.
Yeah.
I looked up trying to find an answer. I found a Reddit post on the Inter Miami subpage that said it should just be called the Florida Derby. Then there's a SBI soccer article from June of last year that says, what should we call this? And it has options. Sunshine Classico, the Turnpike Derby, Florida Classico, Tropical Derby, Florida Derby. Let's view results. Sunshine Classico is winning that poll from a year ago.
How about just calling it like the Sunshine Cup or something like that? Like Classico, I don't know. I don't like the. I get like the guys in Miami wanting it to be of like Spanish sounding like linguistic, but like Orlando is not really heavily Hispanic. It's more Brazilian, South American. Like that's a lot of the Brazilian cultures here. So like calling it the Classico, I don't think it ends in the same way as it does in Brazil.
Wikipedia has it listed as the Everglades Cup.
That's just Miami, though. It sucks. I don't get it. Like it'd be like naming it the Disney Cup. I don't know. I guess there's no the worst state cup. I have no idea. What do you? No in cup.
I think something like the Sunshine, something that has to do with the state of Florida.
The Sunshine Shield.
Or the Orange Cup or something.
You know,
something with oranges or sunshine, I think would fit these two teams the most.
Because if Tampa had a team, it made sense. Like if Tampa, you called it the I-4 Cup or something like that. But
yeah,
Miami's not anywhere near I-4. And the Turnpike, like nobody goes on the Turnpike. Everybody saves money and goes off the Turnpike.
I'll tell you, I had to go down the Turnpike a lot this trip, and man, does that bleed you dry or what?
Oh gosh, it takes a picture every 2 seconds if anybody's not from Florida, so just be aware.
Well, it was. I had to use
the tolls.
So much cash. Yeah. The tolls. Yeah.
Yep. Welcome to Florida.
I remember getting stuck on there on program, and that was like.
Oh yeah, then you're worried about surviving the next week.
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, oh man, that was all my money for the week. What am I gonna do?
It was like 6 McDonald's trips right there.
Oh boy. So let's talk about some games that have happened in the past. So we came back from break for a one-off game. As weird as that sounds. Austin versus Sporting Kansas City. This was in Kansas City. This was on June 12th, right before I left, pretty much. We didn't have time to get together and do one of these. And even then, it's like, do we do one for one game or not? But Dominguez scored early for Austin in the 26th minute. Kansas City scored in the 71st minute through Salaway, made it 1-1. Then we kind of came back from break for real on the 18th. And this had a bunch of games on that Saturday. New York Red Bulls beat Nashville 2-0. Salt Lake beat Vancouver 3-1 with 2 stoppage time goals in the 90+2 and 90+5. Pretty interesting there. That was at Rio Tinto. Then we had Colorado beat Cincinnati in West End Stadium 2-0. We had Historic Crew Stadium get closed out with two Giassi Zardes goals to make it 2-0 over Chicago. We'll talk a little bit about Chicago later. New England Revolution on the 19th beat New York City FC 3-2 with a late Tommy McNamara goal in the 88th minute. Also on the 19th, Orlando over Toronto 3-2. That game was crazy. You were watching that while I was somewhere. I was I think I was in like Hollywood Studios or something. And you're like, game started. One minute in, and Tesho Akindele scores, right? Then 8 minutes in, another goal, right? Then 10 minutes in, Akinola scores. Then in the 39th minute, Osorio ties it up. And then in the 84th minute, you guys take the lead there through was it Urso Jr., right?
Mm-hmm.
They spell this out. They spell out his full name, O.D. Almeida Jr. So that was kind of throwing me off there. Also on the 19th, DC beat Miami. There was 2 red cards for Miami. and this was at Audi Field. Ola Kamara scores a penalty in the 72nd minute. Also on the 19th, we had Dallas versus Minnesota. That game finished 1-1 with Fragapane and Pepe scoring goals there. Austin get held to a scoreless draw in their opening of Q2 Stadium, 0-0 with San Jose. We'll talk about Austin's fans' reaction to that when we get to that Tuesday night Orlando game. Also on that Saturday night, that's right, that was a Saturday, the 19th.
Yeah.
Seattle 2, LA Galaxy 1. LA Galaxy had to come from behind after a Sasha Kleshtin penalty kick in the 21st minute. And they get 2 goals in the 41st and 49th minute. Portland beat SKC. A little bit of a surprise with the way Portland was struggling before and Kansas City was on a hot form. But goals from Espria and Loria give Portland a 2-1 come-from-behind victory at Providence Park. Then, on the 20th, the only game that happened on that Sunday was Atlanta United, Philadelphia Union. Kasper Shabilko, own goal in the 58th minute, gives Atlanta the lead. Then, in the 82nd minute, Walks gets a goal for Atlanta to make it 2-0. Then, Corey Burke pulls one back in the 84th minute. Then, in the 90+3, Jacob Glesnes does it again. He does almost a repeat of what he did against LAFC in 2020 before COVID shut everything down. But this time, instead of a dead ball, it is ball on the move. Atlanta doesn't close them down, and he scores a cracker of a goal. Then we had, 2 days off, and then
Yep.
Orlando, San Jose. Orlando beats San Jose 5-0. 5-0. This game was crazy, too, because it was supposed to start at like 7 o'clock or 7:30.
7:30, yeah.
Got pushed to 8 o'clock or a little after 8.
Mm-hmm.
Then they get like 30-some minutes in, and
Yeah, it's
then
like
have
39
to
or 40.
stop for another hour and a half or so. It was like till 9:30.
Mm-hmm.
Pick it back up again, finish the first half, then go into halftime, come back out, and finish the game. This game's finished right when I was boarding my plane, pretty much. It was like 11:30-ish. Crazy, but those had goals from, I guess it was Nani, right?
Yeah.
Benji, Daryl DK, and Benji Michelle. Again, 5-0. It was 3-0 before they had to postpone and stop for weather again. And let me tell you, that weather was crazy because I was in Orlando.
It was wicked.
I couldn't go to the game, but I was in Orlando. And that was just crazy weather. Then on Wednesday, we had New England Revolution beat New York Red Bulls 3-2. NYCFC beat Atlanta 1-0. Philadelphia Union beat Columbus at Subaru Park. That game finished 1-0 as well. Then we had Cincinnati got on the scoreboard and actually got 3 points. They got them from a team that might be equally or worse than them, Chicago. Then we had Minnesota beat Austin 2-0. Montreal and DC finished 0-0 at Miami Stadium. Figure that one out in a few years when you forget all about what happened. Houston versus Portland finishes 2-2. SKC win 3-1 over the Rapids. Nashville beats Toronto again 3-2. So this is like, they're kind of continuing that from the playoffs there. Seattle continue to roll on 2-1 over Salt Lake. LAFC with Carlos Vela scoring 2-0 over FC Dallas. And LA Galaxy over Vancouver 2-1. And tonight, the day we're recording this, Miami versus Orlando, 8 o'clock, FS1. You might have already listened to this, or this episode might be coming out right when that's coming on. But what a wild week and a half of I mean, really wasn't even a full week. It started on that Friday and played until Wednesday. But what a wild week. What stands out to you here on any of these scores? Because we're about to look at the standings here. So without going into where people are ranked, just like, what are your ultimate thoughts here on some of those results?
There's a couple things. New England is finally playing like New England should. I think that they've kind of turned this corner. You and I had been back and forth on them. That was just because I think it was too early on, and teams had games in hand and they were still ahead of New England, but now New England's just kind of taken this turn. They won 5 straight. The next one, I guess, is Philly, just because Philly continues to just roll. I think they've got such a good defense that it's really hard for teams to beat them, especially when they travel into Subaru Park, which it wasn't the case at the beginning of the year. So kind of correcting the ship and getting it the right way. And I guess the next thing that really stuck out to me was maybe just how bad Vancouver is. We haven't talked much about them, but I mean, just listening to Sam go on his little rants on Twitter.
Yeah.
Basically, with Dos Santos in, you're getting the same kind of performance year in and year out. And I know we'll get them a little bit later, but those were kind of the things that stuck out to me. Everything else, it was kind of like this weird roller coaster couple weeks, and I figured it would because teams are kind of getting their footing. Thank you. Yeah.
Their foot feet.
It's been a long time.
They're getting their foot feet.
Yeah, I'm rusty, but just kind of like they would win or lose, or they would win 2 games or lose 2 games. So it's just kind of this week where everybody kind of stayed put and didn't really shuffle around. There wasn't a whole lot going on as far as moving places. It seems like the teams kind of just stand pat in the standings, but we'll get into that a little bit. But yeah, I think the biggest takeaway has been New England so far.
Yeah. Let's see here. Let's look at the standings just briefly here. What I'm going to do is I wish I could fit this. Oh, I can. Okay. Maybe I can share it on here. Let's see. There we go.
Hey-o.
All right. So we're looking at this. New England, number 1 in the East. Orlando, number 2. Philadelphia, number 3. It's pretty much how those have been going. Those 3 teams have been shifting around the first 3 spots recently. New York City FC is in 4th with Columbus Crew in 5th. Nashville in 6th. DC United, surprise, surprise, in 7th place. 13 points out of 10 games. They're averaging 1.3 points per game. Red Bulls in 8th underneath of the playoff line. Montreal in 9th. We had them kind of low in our previews. Atlanta in 10th, which are struggling mighty at this point. Miami. We talked about how much of a cluster Miami is. Guess what? They're in 11th place. They're still above some of these other teams here. And then we have Cincinnati in 12th, Toronto in 13th, and Chicago in 14th. And at this point, I'm starting to think we might be right with Cincinnati, that they may not get Wood and Spoon. And the only reason that might be is just because of how bad Toronto and Chicago have been this year.
They've been awful. I mean, when you look at the teams, that's why I kept reading things. How is Chris Armas still? And it was after the Toronto and Orlando game. It was like, what's more shocking than the fact that the storyline was more about how Chris Armas is still not the right fit than it was Orlando kind of coming back and beating Toronto there. But yeah, you're right. They've both been really bad, and trying to compete with Cincinnati shouldn't be that hard, but it's proven to be.
Yeah, and one thing that sticks out too is the fact that Cincinnati beat Chicago in Chicago. I will say that we'll have to talk about Chicago's new crest here. That came out while I was down there, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll have to talk about that a little later in the show here, but this is just, when we're looking at the East, because I don't want to stay on the East too long, so let's just kind of look at everything here. The top of the East, like we said, have been kind of consistent. right?
Mhm.
These
Top 4.
when we're looking at the top 3 or 4, New England with 23 points, 10 games played. That's really good. 2.3 points per game. They've only drawn twice. They've lost one. They've had 7 wins. Now they've given up 11 goals, but they still win these games. Orlando, 18 points out of 9 games. So they still have that game in hand, which can put them at 21 points with that game in hand, which would increase their lead over the Union. They're kind of even on points right now. Only 1 loss, 3 draws, but only given up 6 goals. Union have only given up 7. Columbus has only given up 7. Even Montreal has only given up 9, and they're in 9th place. It's pretty crazy. But when you start looking at these bottom teams, Chicago giving up 14 goals and only scoring 4.
Mm-hmm.
Toronto giving up 18 goals. That's the most in the East, and scoring 12. Cincinnati is above Toronto, but they've given up 17 and have only scored 7. And Miami have given up 14. Like, when you look at these bottom teams, it's giving up 14 or more goals in all these, while the top teams giving up anywhere between 6 to 11. So it's kind of showing you the difference there. Atlanta even has only given up 10. They just can't score. They just can't get wins. They're getting, 5 draws for Atlanta. So that's where Atlanta's going. 2 wins, 2 losses, 5 draws. It's kind of a problem for Atlanta. So we're going to take a look at the West soon. Is there any last thoughts you have on the East at all?
So just keeping informed with those bottom 3 teams. Cincinnati's lost 3 of their last 5. Toronto's lost 4 of their last 5. And that other one was a draw. They haven't won one in that stretch of 5. And then Chicago lost 4 in their last 5 with a win. So 3 teams trending the wrong way. Inter Miami too has some too, because their last 3 have been losses too. So yeah, it's been tough for a lot of these teams, and getting into like a stretch of the season where these are like those games in baseball where they really matter. They always talk about the rough days in July and August about being like really tough to play. I think this is that kind of same stretch right after this break and into kind of these competitions where teams are going to be missing players. Like, this is one, if you can keep your head afloat, you can gain some ground like Orlando could. New England already has separated themselves some from the rest of the pack. I know a lot of the teams have only played 9 games, but even if Columbus, NYCFC, and Nashville win, they're only up at 17 points, which is still not good enough to get up there with the with New England, Union, and City. So, I think that looking at teams, those bottom 4 are in a lot of trouble, and that could spell the end for quite a bit of people there. Raphael Wicke, that could be the end of him in Chicago. It probably already is.
Could be. It should be.
Toronto, Armas, I thought that was a 1-year thing anyway. Jaap Stam.
Going to be.
Jaap Stam. They're going to have to replace another Twitter photo with him, because I think that's going to end pretty quickly.
Yeah, they'll hire Mr. Clean next time.
Yeah, Inter Miami's the one.
This mess.
Inter Miami's the one in kind of like that holding pattern where that could spell trouble for a couple more years, just because of how much of a mess they're in right now. Just because they're not playing well, they're in 11th. They give up goals like it's Christmas. And I think that they really struggle with bringing people in because of the DP issues, unless they can kind of sneak 6 or 7 of them in again. So,
well, here's the thing too about the East. You have New England with 23.
Mm-hmm.
You have Orlando and Philly with 18, and I think those are the class of the East. And then you look lower than that. There's a 4-point gap between 3rd and 4th,
mm-hmm.
but that gap from 4th to 1st is 9 points, but you have all those teams bunched up. Like, the difference between 4th and 9th, 4th and 10th is 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
3 points. So Atlanta, as bad as they've been, can jump up there if they just start winning instead of drawing. Any of these teams, except for Toronto and Chicago, I think, are still in this. I think those 2 are the teams that are not. Cincinnati can border on that, but they're still only 6 points behind at this point, where they could make a run.
And they have two games in hand. They've only
theoretically by points they could still move up. But when you're looking at teams like Toronto and Chicago, I think they're about dead in the water as you can be, which is crazy. Toronto started off okay, right? Like,
yeah, no, we thought they were going to be okay. Like
we thought they were going to be not low, but
bottom of the playoffs, maybe below.
What did we have them as? It's been a few weeks. Here's the Eastern predictions. I had them 6th. You had them 7th.
No,
shows what we know.
They've also been playing without Pozuelo, and he's only played 1 game since he's been back because he didn't play last game. So I don't know.
But Orlando has been playing without DK until last week.
Yeah, but
and they haven't had Pato since week 1.
Yeah, but Orlando is a different beast. I think Toronto is kind of on the edge of the door. The Orlando was rising while Toronto had been dipping anyway. Even though they had good seasons previous, I think their trajectory is more downhill than Orlando's is, especially them. And like if you look at teams like Philly, Orlando, New England, NYCFC, the Crew, like their trajectories have been pretty on point going forward. The rest of the teams, like we had questions about Montreal. I still have questions about Montreal. It just doesn't seem they're doing well, but I think it's because think about the teams they're having to play. They're playing the Red Bulls, Atlanta, who's been really not good. Miami's not been great to start, or they were good to start, but not so good since. And then Cincinnati. And Toronto and Fire down there at the bottom. I just don't know. I guess when we look at the West, you can kind of see where it varies. But the East I think the East is more competitive than the West at times. So,
yeah, let's look at the West. We have Seattle with 24 points. 24 points. They've had still no losses, averaging 2.4 points a game. We have Kansas City in 2nd with 20 points, LA Galaxy in 3rd with 18, Colorado in 4th with 16, Portland, who were struggling, are all the way up to 5th with 13 points, Houston even in 6th with 13 points, and Real Salt Lake. Look at these last 4 teams and the playoffs. Colorado, Portland is kind of expected, but then Houston and Salt Lake, nobody was thinking that at this point. Then you have LAFC, who's starting to get hot. They're now up to 8th. At one point, they were like last place. Minnesota at one point was near the bottom. They're now up to 9th with 11 points. San Jose were once in our power rankings. They were once like 2nd place in the West. They're now down to 10th. They're averaging 1 point per game. So here's the cool thing. They're 10th place with 10 points after 10 games played. That's really cool. Austin is in 11th. Fans are freaking out over that. They have 9 points. Vancouver in 12th with 7, and FC Dallas in 7th place, in 13th place with 7 points. Now, when we look at goals conceded, like we just did in the other example, Seattle has only given up, if you can believe this, 5. That's the lowest in Major League Soccer. Looking at the rest of the teams, Kansas City have given up 14. LA Galaxy have given up 14. Colorado's given up 11. Portland has given up, you guessed it, 14. Houston has given up 15. RSL given up 10. LAFC has only given up 10.
There's no defense out there.
Minnesota's given up 12. San Jose, 17. 17. Austin has given up 11. Vancouver and Dallas have given up, you guessed it, 14. That's kind of a common number here. But yeah, when we look at this, the best defense is Seattle. The second best defense is Orlando with 6. So these top 3 teams have been the same pretty consistently. Seattle, SKC, LA Galaxy. LA Galaxy, they're for real, right?
Yeah, they're a playoff team. But not. I don't think they're contenders, but I do think they're a playoff team. Yes, I think they're top of the West for okay. Our famous question, Jordan, at the beginning or at the end of each preview, it was seen to be the case where all these teams thought that a successful season was top 4 in the playoffs. So I think that they're right now a successful team. But then when I look at teams below them, I just don't. again, and it's really tough to compare the two because they do have different styles, it seems, at times. But the East plays such better defense that, like, and they won't ever really play each other. The finals is really play each other because we no longer have games where they can travel. Yeah. So it's really tough to compare the two. But defensively, I mean, the East is so much more sound than the West. The West just gives up goals like it's nobody's business. So it makes you really question, like, and when you when you look at the teams, though, I think Philadelphia has a really good defense. I think Orlando has a really good defense. I think NYCFC's played really well defensively. There's times where United, I think, has played well. DC United has played well defensively. There's Montreal's played really well defensively, which is shocking. Atlanta, that's their best part, which is sad because they've got such a potent attack on paper. But when you look at the West, Jordan, you see, like you said, it went from 5 all the way to the end because nobody's
17.
Nobody's close to Seattle in defense either. So I think Real, Salt Lake, and LAFC are second in defense, and they've given up 10 goals, where we have like 4 or 5 teams that don't.
Are we surprised that San Jose have given up 17 goals? Because
not from. I mean, they did nothing They did nothing from last year to this year. I think they actually got worse because they had who was it? Is it Taylor Thompson? Yeah, Taylor Thompson playing a right back, which that wasn't going to go well because Nick Lima left. So, and Eric Remedi, a center defensive mid's not going to fix anything that's wrong with the center backs. So, and it does bode really poorly for Marcinkowski because he's got aspirations to kind of challenge Ochoa and Turner and them but right now he'd be like probably bottom of the barrel when you look at, because somebody's going to have to replace Zach Steffen, I think. So I think that when you're looking at guys, I think Matt Turner's made a good case to be number 2 in behind Ethan Horvath. So, no, I'm not shocked when I look at San Jose. It's unfortunate because they had played so well to start the season, but ever since then, it's just been a really slippery slope downhill.
Yeah, that's why, we always try to say it's a long season because sometimes people come out with the hot takes, pretty quickly here on, what this all means for, for these teams. And now we're seeing we started off very concerned about San Jose in the preseason. They had a really bad first game, and then they started looking better in the second, set of games. And then they looked really bad again. So this is what MLS is, and honestly, it's like you don't really know what you're getting at all. But one thing that when we're looking at this that really sticks out to me is the West has a little bit more separation, I feel. When you're looking at sorry, I'm just also trying to get this Chicago Fire logo ready for when we talk about that.
Like their 1 through 9 spots. Is that where you're going with that?
Yeah. What I was trying to say is, about the when we're looking at the 1 through more like how we were talking about 4 through 7, right? Of the other one, and how there was only like a 3-point gap. There is like I think a 8-point gap, so it's still kind of close, but it doesn't seem as close when I look at these. So, for example, we're looking at 4th place, 16 points, LAFC with 12 in 8th. The gap between NYCFC in 4th and New York Red Bulls is 2 points. So it's like double the point difference there, but the East is really more bunched up, I feel, than here, because you start getting to, I don't know, maybe not, because like 7th and 13th is 5 points. It's still so early in the season, I guess. We've only played 10 games, 11 games at max. SKC has played 11.
Yeah, but even when you look at like even when you look at teams with games at hand, so like if you look at Orlando, NYCFC, Nashville, and Columbus, they have 9 games played. If they all win, Orlando goes to 21 points, NYCFC goes to 17 with Nashville and Crew at 17. And then Red Bulls could get up to 15 if they win their game in hand, and so on and so forth. Whereas, like, if you look at the West, if the Rapids win their game in hand, they'll be at 19. LA Galaxy could be at 21. I think you've got more at the top, like you said, in the West, and then the teams below them are just kind of trickling down off of them. Like Houston Dynamo has played 10 games, so they have their game. Kansas City has played 11. Like, I hate this COVID schedules because it screws up all the games. It's really hard to like math which ones are which. Portland looks rough, and I'm not sure that they're going to get any better. They just don't look like they have it this year.
Well, they're fifth.
Yeah, but they've looked. And I mean, Salt Lake has a game in hand; they could pass them, along with the rest of the teams that have games in hands, but they have a game in hand, so or 2 if you really look at it. But I don't know. It just seems. It seems like when I watch the West, their teams aren't as good, and if maybe it's because I I watch more of the East games. But
yeah, you're biased.
Maybe, but then I look at like their defense, and I'm like, they can't stop anybody from scoring. So I don't know, it's tough. But
yeah, the West probably I would say has worse defense, but I think they have more exciting games.
They do
because of that fact. Honestly.
Yeah, they give up a lot more, and people score a lot more over there. So
yeah. Well, I mean, look, Orlando put 5 against San Jose. You're part of the reason they have 17 instead of 12 here, actually. So, hey, but that's San Jose, right? We looked at some when we talked with Jamin in the offseason. We're looking at some of their score lines, and it's like 3-1, 3-0. Then losing 3-0, losing 4-0, winning 4-1,
losing 5-0.
But they haven't had those score lines in their favor this year as much.
No.
If they've won, it's been by lower amounts usually, but some of their losses have been really bad, like the Orlando game.
Yeah. So like if you're looking at the table right now, I mean, who are you looking at that like has absolutely either exceeded expectations or really just gone way below what we thought they were going to be? Like I've got one in mind, and it's obvious
on the West
over there. Yeah.
On the West, I mean, I had Austin in 10th place. They're in 11th right now, so I feel like that's pretty dead on at this point. A team that I thought was going to be really good that isn't is Minnesota, but they're on the rise. I think by the end of the season, Minnesota and LAFC are still in those playoff spots, and Houston and Salt Lake fall out of them.
Yeah, because when I look at the West, everybody's kind of fallen into a place where we thought they would be. Obviously, Minnesota's kind of that weird one.
I mean, I actually had Dallas in there.
That's what I thought.
So did you, yeah.
Looking at Dallas, it's shocking to me, like how bad they've been. And they really don't score. Like they have a really tough time scoring.
They have 4?
Yeah.
Or is it
no, they've got 9.
They have
9 goals, yeah. And anybody below them is Vancouver and Austin.
One win. One win for Dallas.
Yeah.
4 draws.
That's Chicago Fire style, except Chicago doesn't draw anybody. They just lose.
Oh, yeah. So let's look at Wooden Spoon then, right? Wooden Spoon still goes to Chicago at 4 points, even after looking at how bad Dallas and Vancouver are. So that's the thing about the East as well, though, right? The West, at least, their bottom teams have 7 points. Looking at the East, we have Toronto with 5 and Chicago with 4. Cincinnati would be bottom of the West right now, and there they are in 12th place. They're feeling pretty good.
Yeah. I just feel like our top 5 or 6 are really good teams. Like Nashville's a really good team. Columbus is a really good team. NYCFC is a good team. Orlando's a really good team. New England's a really good team. Philly's a really good team. Whereas you have this big gap, I think, of levels in West. I think in the West you have 3 sections. I think you've got the top 2, which are Sporting in Seattle. I don't think there's going to be much variance. Maybe LA Galaxy, if they can still keep going. We'll see. They've been up and down lately. I don't think Rapids are on their level. So I think that's where like the next tier starts. And then I think it drops down into like the 8th or 9th spot. And then after that, it goes from the 10th to like the 13th, because I don't think those teams are anywhere close to the other teams.
Question for you, going back to the East. Is DC a good team?
Oh, man. Yeah.
I'm starting to think they are.
The way that they're being coached has like if I had to pick a manager of the year right now, it'd probably be Bruce Arena. But then after that, I'd have to go with DC just because of Hernan Losada has taken that team from what many thought was going to be like a bottom tier 12th to 14th team. And he's got them up in 7th. And their defense has looked pretty decent for them. Their goal scoring, I think they're going to have to get more goal scoring, obviously, just because they lack that some. But the way that they play defense and with what the talent level they have, they're not as talented as the other teams, but they sure are playing a lot better. They don't have like that star person you turn to and go, oh, yeah, he's great. This team, like you said, Jordan, I think they're a good team. Like I think they kind of hang around that 7 spot for the rest of the year, I hope. So,
I mean, yeah. So let me show this. We've talked about how good Caden Clark has been. We've talked about how good Bo and Books have been, and how good Nani has been, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you know who has one less goal than Nani, and even with all those other guys I mentioned?
Ola
Kamara with 4. So he's having a pretty good season for himself. I think he had, like 3 last year?
Yeah.
He didn't have a lot last year, right? And he's already got 4.
Mm-hmm.
He's already got 4. We have, but you're right. They still need probably more than that. Everybody else on their team that has scored a goal has only scored 1.
Mm-hmm.
Julian Gressel still hasn't really showed up well for them this year. But look at that. They're in the playoff spot. Now, again, the gap, let's just say this because it's still early. We're almost a third of the way into the season. DC, 13 points out of 10 games played. They're going to play 34. So they got 24 more games to go. The gap between them and out of the playoffs is 1 point. So that can literally change this weekend. But let's go ahead and start looking ahead to the week that will be. Let's look at the schedule here. Tonight, like I said, Miami versus Orlando. As soon as we hop off here, we're pretty much going to go watch that game. That's in Miami. Drive Pink Stadium, or actually Drive Stadium, as it's spelled. Tomorrow, on my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, 30. Jeez.
You're old, man.
I am. Yeah. Midlife crisis time now.
Yeah.
Kansas City versus LAFC on ESPN at 5:30. That's Saturday, June 26th. That's a big matchup for the West. LAFC kind of starting to get hot. SKC have been a little hot. They did just have a loss in one of those 2 games this week. But, they're still second place in the West. LAFC probably need the points, but it's at Kansas City, so we'll see what happens there. Toronto versus Cincinnati. This is 2 bottom feeder teams at 7 o'clock on ESPN+. Not much else to say there, is it, really?
May the best team draw. I don't know. Win.
Yeah. You know what? I would maybe bet on Cincinnati winning, as weird as that sounds.
Are they at home, though?
No, it's at empty Toronto. Empty Toronto. So empty Orlando, right? And then we have Chicago versus Philadelphia Union at Soldier Field. Chicago, Union should win that game. Even at Soldier Field. They only had like 5,000 people show up last time. So they're in major need. We're going to talk about them in a little bit with the rebrand, but they're in some major need of something in Chicago. I don't even know how to fix that situation right now. Salt Lake versus Houston at 8 o'clock. Nashville versus Montreal at 8:30. That's a pretty entertaining game now that Montreal's been doing better. Nashville's in the playoff spots. Salt Lake and Houston is really good because those teams have snuck into playoff spots right now. Salt Lake and Houston is on Unimas, TUDN, and Twitter, 8 o'clock. 8:30, Nashville, Montreal on ESPN+. 9 o'clock, a Cascadia matchup with Seattle versus Vancouver at Lumen Field on ESPN+. Another Unimas, TUDN, and Twitter game is San Jose versus LA Galaxy at PayPal Park for San Jose. It's 10 o'clock. 11:30. So it looks like a late night for my birthday here. Portland versus Minnesota at 11:30. That's on ESPN+. That's in Portland. On Sunday, there are 4 games. Atlanta versus New York Red Bulls. That's at 3:30 on ESPN+. 6 o'clock, it's NYCFC versus DC United. Those teams are both in the playoff spots. We were just talking about DC. If they can pull off a win at New York City, which are actually playing in New Jersey Red Bull Arena. DC social media team had a really great use of the Anakin Padme meme going around. I suggest looking that up. Austin versus Columbus, the big one. The ones Austin fans say they do not care about Columbus, but created T-shirts about Columbus, keep saying F Columbus. Starting to think they care about Columbus. We know Columbus cares about Austin because they did that whole plane. Did you see that? Where they put a plane over Q2 Stadium with the saying like Precourt's a jerk or whatever. There's something about Precourt. Yeah, awesome. They flew it over Q2 Stadium on opening day. That's at 8 o'clock on FS1. 9 o'clock, Dallas versus New England. That should be an easy 3 points for New England, but it is in Dallas at 9 o'clock. I think this Portland, Minnesota game that was moved, I think, to 11:30.
Yeah.
I think that's still the right time. Merritt Paulson came out on Twitter today saying they were moving that due to the heat.
Yep.
But he used the West Coast time, so I'm going to look that up real quick.
I was going to say, you can come down here and play in Florida. We know something about heat.
Yeah. He's saying they're pushing it back to 8:30. It was at 8 o'clock. So it was at 11 o'clock Eastern, and now it's at 8:30. So this website is updated. So we're good to go there. What games stick out to you here?
Man, these are some rough games this weekend. There's a lot of variance. Like there's like really good versus really bad, really good versus really bad, really good. But again, it's MLS. I mean, obviously I'm looking forward to the one tonight, but I do think it has the potential to be one of the better ones of the weekend. The Columbus one and Austin one is the most intriguing, I think, of the weekend, just because of the whole storylines.
The off-field.
Yeah, it's at Q2, so another game at Q2, so that's fun. Precourt being there and Austin not being able to defend or score, really, so that should be fun. Columbus can't score, though, either, so I don't know how this is going to end. Maybe it'll be a 0-0 draw again. But and then after that, I would say that the NYCFC game versus DC United is a game that I'm looking forward to watching too.
Yeah, I think there's some really good matchups. SKC versus LAFC, really looking forward to that one. Of course, I'm looking forward to Chicago-Philly because I think that Philly could probably grab some points there. Otherwise, I'm looking forward again to San Jose LA. They've played that game before recently to start near the beginning of the season. That was fun. I love watching this Galaxy team with Chicharito, 8 goals. He's still top of the Golden Boot list right now. So it's all exciting. Those are probably my 3 games that I'm looking forward to the most. So let's talk Chicago Fire rebrand. And I have, if you're listening to the audio show, we do have a graphic I'm pulling up on the video feed. If you haven't seen the Chicago logo, you can find it. They posted all about it. But here it is. Ready? So here we go. This shows all 3 logos. I got this set up here. You can clearly see the inspiration from the first logo and 0 inspiration from the second logo.
Get as far away from that other one as we can. What logo?
For people that don't remember, this crest, Chicago Fire FC crest, that came out. It was released in November 2019. They wore it for 2020. They're wearing it this year, and next year they're going to the third crest. Did not go over well. They call it the crown badge because they have like fire that looks like a crown. I don't know how else to describe it. Never really got what they were going for at that because it almost just looks like a reflection of the fire. Like it doesn't look like usually you would have red, then yellow, and then orange as like the flames in the same thing, not like
a reflection.
Yeah. So I'm not really sure what they were going for there. And it just, I mean, really, when you have something as good as that first one, you're like, why did you change it to that?
Yep.
I don't get it. This third one, though, looks really nice. And you can see the inspiration. You have the C that Chicago always has, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the little line that the Cincinnati Reds and the Chicago Bears and almost every team with the C has. I don't know why, right? But they have it there. And they had it in the first one. There you go. Then you have a cat meow. You have
she likes it.
You have the cross, like the fire cross, right? Whatever that's called.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little bit more pronounced in the first one here, but you have it in here, and you have the light blue, the white, and the red. These are Chicago's colors. These are the Chicago flag. And you have the star in it. So the star is a good addition. The star was also in the first one. If you see the little white spikes around here. But I don't know. I do like this one. I think the first one is still probably the best one they've ever had. Maybe it's a little outdated. Maybe you could have just taken this first one and just kind of used these colors now. I don't know. I like the C better in the first one because I think it looks more unique than this block C.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, I like this crest. I like it better than the Revolution's new crest that we just looked at last episode. I don't know. There's just something about it that I think it's a good crest, right?
Yeah, it goes well with the rest of the city. It's going to be really confusing for the Bears and the Cubs because they're all C's and they're going to be like, what logo is that? No, but I like it. I like the colors. I've always liked the Chicago flag, so I thought that was really well done. I think it represents the neighborhoods really well. So, I like this one. I hate the one that they currently have. Like you said, Jordan, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It looks like a crown, like you said. That doesn't make any sense. I liked what they did here. And it does seem like they used fan input. So that's what they said they did. Doing. Yep. So that's the biggest thing for me. And I'm glad that Chicago's figured it out. I'm glad the crew has kind of figured that out. There was rumors about New England having a new crest as well going around, and they filed for their patent. And this is official. Yeah. I mean, this is as official as it gets. So we've had this is like the third episode in a row we've talked about some kind of logo.
I think so, or close to it.
And then who was it that tweeted that out? Somebody else.
Jason Davis said that there was another
one on the works
to rebrand.
Yeah. So Jordan and I were trying to guess at that last episode. So if you have any ideas, I guess drop us the comment on Twitter or something as to who you think is due for a rebrand, or if there's any teams.
The Rapids were probably due for one, and I would still probably agree to that. Yep. I did see a girl in Disney wearing I don't know what it was. It was like the Rapids logo, but it was Carolina Rapids. I don't know if it's like a youth team or something, but it was the same exact Rapids logo, but Carolina instead of Colorado.
Interesting.
I thought that was interesting. I was like, I've never seen that before.
That'd be a different kind of rebrand, a whole city swap.
Yeah, but stay in Colorado.
There'd be a way to announce it would be a horrible way to announce that a team's relocating.
Yeah.
Like Miami's tired of being down in Miami. They want to be called Tampa now.
They want to be Fort Lauderdale, where they play.
Yeah.
Let's look at the power rankings real quick. We're not doing a separate episode for this week. Maybe never again. We'll see. Seattle Sounders in first, Revs in second. I don't think you can argue that they both have the better points. Seattle still hasn't lost. That you can't really argue that. SKC in third, might be able to argue that, but Orlando in fourth and Union in fifth seems pretty clear on our end. What was just going through your mind when you were making the top five here?
Well, obviously, I knew 1 and 2 easily. There was no question. New England's played too well over the last 5. Seattle's just been really good all season. To have that many points per game is incredible. The Sporting Kansas City and Orlando one, it's still kind of like, okay, either one could go each place. I still think that SKC is much more difficult to beat at times at home than Orlando can be. Orlando's drawn a couple times at home. It seems like Sporting has a real difficult time being beat at home. And I think that in a West, they look a little bit better right now just because the teams that they're having to beat, I think, are better teams at the top two. Orlando, again, that could have gone either way. And then Philadelphia. Like Philadelphia is like that person that you just kind of doubt the whole season, and they're just going to be there until the end. They're kind of like becoming this team in MLS where they're just so steady that they're going to always be there to compete with you. And it seems like you might as well hang up your boots if you visit Subaru Park now, because I think they finally got back into that stretch where they feel like they can't be beat at home. And that's scary because that's kind of that groove they got into last year that made them so good.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is the second week in a row with these 5, I think.
Mm-hmm. And in the playoffs, these teams could beat each other. I mean, there's nobody that I would pick in this group that's like the heavy favorite, because I think all 5 of them are really good teams. So.
Seattle Revs final would be really cool. That never works out that way, but I think that'd be a really good final. Revs never won it. They were like the Bills, where they make it 4 times and don't win it.
Those are all 5 really good fan bases too. I mean, those are pretty passionate fan bases. Mercy Park's really tough to play in. Lumen Field's difficult to play in. Seattle and Orlando are both very difficult places to come.
Revs is probably the worst of the fan bases.
Yeah, I would say that. And plus, they
need a stadium.
Yeah, playing at Gillette can't be. Playing at a non-specific stadium. Non-soccer specific stadium's got to be tough because it just doesn't have the same atmosphere. At Orlando and stuff, I feel like I'm on top of the players.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
I mean, Seattle plays in Lumen Field, but it's different because they do love. Like Seattle's been a big part of that city for so long. The Sounders have. Revs really need to break into the mainstream of Boston and that area, and that would help with the stadium. Who knows? They might actually get a stadium before.
I was going to say, it sounds like they're going to. Yeah. It sounds like recently Kraft has had actual serious conversations about adding a stadium in 2023. So
we'll see. They've said that a few years.
They added a training facility, so that's one step.
Yeah. But good. That was good. I think we caught everything up on this so far. I mean, right? I mean, I don't think we really missed anything.
We didn't talk about how good Daryl DK was.
I mean, he was really good. That was his first full game, right? He played half of the other or something.
Yep.
That's why you keep on to him, man. And people are like, well, what if he doesn't come back and score goals? Then he lowers his value. He comes back and immediately scores 2 goals.
2 good goals, too. They weren't.
Yeah, his value is going to continue to climb. He's going to play well. And his partnership with Nani, if you're Orlando, like I keep saying, you hold on to him this year, not just through the summer, and you get him.
Yeah, elevated. And he's going to play in qualifying, I think. So his value is only going to go up. And a lot.
Play in the Gold Cup.
Yeah. So, and like just his value is going to go tremendously. And there's no real purpose in selling him now unless a team just absolutely knocks down your door with an offer.
And if Orlando holds on to him, if he goes to the Gold Cup, that doesn't affect him that much.
No.
When it comes to like they've hung around in the top 2 of the East without him. They're getting Pato back. If they lose him to Gold Cup and then he comes back and you guys make a run in the playoffs, that's what you need him for. You need him for the run in the playoffs because you guys are going to make the playoffs, barring an epic collapse, because the team has just been consistent, right? And with him back, you're going to continue to climb, theoretically. But you need him ready to go for the playoffs, and that's when you make your push of Nani's last year, supposedly, in Orlando. You have Daryl DK. You have, Van der Vaarder, right? Mueller. You have everybody try to make this run now with Pato and all of them. And then you sell him in the offseason. He goes somewhere else. You get $20 million or around that or slightly less than that. And you have a trophy. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah. And you got to be really concerned with him too, because one, like he's turning out to be competitive for the number 1 spot in the U.S. men's national team. But you got to think too that Orlando's probably better off holding it on to him for the year too, anyway, because at least selling him in January or February, like you're in the part of the Premier League or wherever he's going to end up, where it's going to be like a ladder stretch of the season, and then he'll have that break. Whereas like if he's playing MLS and then he goes to Premier, he's got to play this whole next season.
Yeah.
Or like Bundesliga, he's got to play this whole next season, a whole season. whereas at least he'd get a break next summer. Or next summer if you sold him.
I can see what you mean. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they're going to give, and plus I feel like the MLS is a perfect setup because Orlando could take him out for 2 or 3 matches, where in Premier League you can't take down a striker for a month.
Right.
And just kind of give him some time. So
we shall see, but I think he stays. I think he holds. I mean, this is your best chance for an Orlando MLS Cup. I think this year out of any year. They're never been this high really to be second place in the East right now.
Yeah.
And that's without him and without Pato, and the fact that both of them are coming back now. It's a real chance to challenge the Revs and challenge the Union and try to nab a home playoff game that gets you a trophy maybe.
Right.
And then you can let him go, and he'll be ready to go, and he'll be. I would rather that. I'd rather Orlando kind of hold on to him, try to make a push here, than what we see from Dallas. What we see from Dallas doesn't work, as we see. They're in last place. But they bring in these players real quick. We had Reggie Cannon. He's gone. A few weeks later, Brian Reynolds is gone.
Yeah.
And those players Brian Reynolds barely played for them at all. Barely. And I'd rather a team be like, well, we also want to win. And we talked about this when we talked about Dallas is, are you just doing this to move players on, or are you trying to win? And to me, it doesn't feel like they're trying to win. It feels like they're just trying to have an academy move players through. And they're now, bottom of the West.
They're flipping houses like they flip paper. That's how they flip. They flip players, and they don't have real interest in keeping value. So, I don't know.
Well, Orlando seemingly taking the gamble of, we'll play them, and we're going to try to win, and then we'll sell them.
Yeah. Hell, Dallas brought in Weston McKennie for a picture, and now they're going to sell him back to Juventus. It's nuts.
Yeah, and it's funny, too, because he never really even...
He never touched the pitch with them.
When he was a youth player.
Yeah.
He never made the senior team, and they had him.
They have him on a one-day transfer. He's back.
And I think that's funny. I take a picture like, oh, we produced him. It's like, but you also lost him for nothing. Like what? That doesn't help either.
Yeah.
At least the Red Bulls were able to convince Caden Clark to come. He's going. That's official. He's going to Leipzig. And Union were able to convince Brendan Aronson to play here and then sell him later. Mark McKenzie.
Caden Clark.
It was cool. Did you see Brendan Aronson and Mark McKenzie
are back.
They were in the river end banging on the drums.
They signed for a one-year deal. Yeah, they're all back. They're all playing MLS. That's nobody.
They signed for a one-year deal, but they're just in the Sons of Ben. They signed a one-year deal with them, not the end. Yeah,
they're all playing. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, Pulisic was at the Austin game.
Just imagine, Jordan. Just imagine, it's this undercurrent of players all coming back to MLS.
Everybody hated that. Everybody hated that. I loved it. I loved when Michael Bradley and Josie and Dempsey all came back. I was like, this is great. I get to see these players here.
What's his name was here still? Yedlin was still here.
Yeah.
Was it Julian Green too?
I got to see Dempsey win a U.S. Open Cup in Philadelphia as he beat my team. But, stuff like that. You can't – while it's great for them to get the higher level experience, it does suck when you're like, I can't even see, them play near me. Because if we're watching baseball and you have Tatis Jr., when San Diego comes into town, you can go see him play. These other teams are never in town. We have to go overseas to really see them. And when they are in town, it's for pointless friendlies where they don't even play the first team most of the time. And you never get to see these great players in person. Even the U.S. games. The U.S. games are massively overpriced compared to what they used to be.
I guess at least consolation is if you're wealthy enough, you'll be able to see some World Cup action here soon. But I mean, Arsenal and Tottenham or Everton are coming to Orlando, man. They'll probably play. I said
top teams.
Jordan Pickford will be here. Matt will go see him.
Yeah. Well, that about wraps us up here. Logan, do you like Loki?
I do like Loki. Why? What's going on?
Well, we have a podcast talking Loki.
Do we really?
Only episode 1 is up right now because of the vacation, so I have to make some makeup ones this weekend. But me and Matt talked episode 1 of Loki before I went on vacation, and I'm probably gonna have to try to see if he can knock out 2 this weekend or whatever. But yeah, it's been good, so you can listen to that there. That's on To the Infinity Saga and Beyond. You can check that out. I don't know when we're doing stoppage time again because no real
transfer news
has come out. Jadon Sancho looks to be going to Manchester United, but we kind of talked about that last year enough. I think
it was already a done deal. He was already a
done deal last year. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But right now, we'll probably do another one of these. What, Tuesday? I guess.
Yeah, probably Tuesday.
Recapping the weekend stuff, and have a great rest of your week. And we'll catch you next time.